Right here before us, we have Linux Mint 22.3, the new version. We are going to take a look at everything that's new and what you can expect from Linux Mint version 22.3. And right at the very end, I will also show you how you can upgrade from an existing Linux Mint version to this new one and tell you when you should perform that upgrade. And with that, a warm welcome to Linuxort. My name is Jean and Linux Mint has actually fully released this version by now. We did a preview video a few weeks ago where we looked at a few features that were coming to version 22.3, but now the version is public and you can even upgrade to it already. But now let's get into the new features. What has actually happened in Linux Mint 22.3. First, the hard facts. We get updates on this version until 2029. This is also the last version of the 22 series. I expect the new major version, Linux Mint 23, around June, July or August this year. So that will be a big leap forward. However, if you want to start with Linux right now, or if you want to get going with Linux Mint, this version is still highly recommended. You don't need to wait for the newest major version coming in the summer. So let's take a look at the whole thing. We'll start with the most noticeable change when you open the start menu. Yes, we have a new start menu in Linux Mint. We now have places here like opening the desktop or the downloads folder. Then we have favorites like the calculator, calendar, but also things like the software manager. We can also customize the sidebar here. So for example, we can take the software manager out and replace it, for example, with Firefox. You can just drag and drop here and this will work. Nice. We also have our kind of new category list here. Honestly, I'm usually a fan of making things cleaner with those monochrome icons we can see here. But here I think it's actually a bit counterproductive. It wasn't bad when each category had its own color, to be honest. It gave you something distinct to look at besides the name or the plain symbol. But now, yeah, it's all black and white. However, we can configure the start menu a bit more than before. So I right click the start menu here, we go to configure, and here in configure I select appearance, and then here I can disable those symbolic icons for categories option, and then yeah, we have our old icons back. Let's have a closer look to this menu configuration window, and we start from the very beginning. Here we see various places we can activate. By default, only desktop and the documents folder are activated. And maybe, honestly, I personally would enable the documents folder and the home folder. And I personally would disable the desktop folder because I'm not storing anything on the desktop folder. But of course, you can define that to your very own configuration. And now this looks much more relevant to me. Also, we can drag the whole menu a bit bigger. So I drag it here on the corner and then we can resize it, maybe something like this. You can also add some custom bookmarks to this left sidebar here. So if we open up our file manager here and I go to documents, I can, for example, create a new folder here. We call it now Linuxort, and then I can drag and drop this Linuxort folder to the bookmarks section here, which appears, and now I can see the Linuxort folder also inside my menu sidebar. I would say this is a great feature. And if we look a bit more upwards, we see our user with a profile picture. If I click on that profile picture, it takes us to the account details, and here I can really select a profile picture. For example, I now select the penguin. And now a penguin is looking at us. If you don't like this avatar, we can also disable the avatar here, and then this is gone. We can also, for example, if we don't like this sidebar at all, we can also disable the sidebar. And now we only have our categories and then our search field in the bottom. We can, of course, also go to the appearance and, for example, position the search bar at the top, then our menu looks like this. And we can also position the system buttons, so the power off, log out or lock button alongside the search bar. And now we have back our very important system buttons. And this could be also your menu on Linux Mint. You can do quite a lot of changes. And if you want to reset everything, you can do that also very quickly. I go to this so-called burger menu and then I hit reset to defaults. And now everything should be back to the defaults. And here we are. Also, we can change the maximum width of the sidebar. For example, I can take it to 250. And then, it's a bit bigger. And then we see all our full names of those applications. What do you think of it? I personally am very curious. It takes some getting used to at first. Please write in the comments what you think about it. Enough about the start menu. Let's look at an application that has received significantly more content, which should please many Windows switchers. A problem we've always had on Linux, especially for beginners, is not being able to graphically see all connected USB devices or hardware. Linux Mint has decided to fix this better than anyone else right now in the Linux world. This is in the system information tool as we see it here. I open it up. Here we have the general system information, but additionally we now have a USB display, which USB devices are currently plugged in. What about my graphics card, the GPU settings? Also, what PCI devices or network cards do I have? Very useful. You get a lot of great info here. We can even see the BIOS version and brand. This is generally new. If you plug in a USB device, you can hit refresh here and it will show up here. I think this creates much more transparency for users. Big thumbs up from me at this point. Also, we have our still existing system reports or crash reports. This tool got a very big update and a revamp. Another tool has also been created called System Administration. With this, we can finally officially configure our boot menu, the Grup menu, graphically in Linux Mint. Isn't that great? You can decide if the menu appears, set the timeout in seconds, and what I find totally cool, set your own kernel parameters. This is very technical and most of you won't need it at any time. But if I ever make a tutorial saying, please activate this kernel parameter, you can do that now graphically. Looking beyond Linux Mint, this feels like the first attack on OpenSUSE's Yast manager. It's a great step, I would say. OpenSUSE ditched Yast in the last version, or in the last Leap version 16, and now Linux Mint might copy some very useful features of Yast, and this could be the very first step to it. But let's see what other features will appear in the future in the system administration tool. I'm very sure in the next versions we will see some more entries on this side. We also have a new menu point in a keyboard settings called Keyboard Layout. So if I open keyboard, here we see it, layout, or more to say, this got revamped. For example, I can view my layout here. This was already present in earlier versions of Linux Mint, but now got a better spot, I would say. And now we can define many more options known as the XKB options. If you have specific behaviors you want for your keyboard, like for example, where the euro sign is located or the parenthesis position or LED behavior, you can configure that now here. This used to require editing text files in the past. Now we can do that graphically. And I would say this is particularly helpful for complex layouts like Japanese, allowing you to switch input methods also quickly in the taskbar if you enabled a bit different input methods. But for us, with the English layout, it's kind of boring and not a big thing at all. But I guess for some other input methods, those are great additions. But now let's quickly jump into the file manager called Nemo. It has received a few updates. The icons here look a bit different, but also we have a new template manager. We go to edit, then preferences, and then we see here document templates. So if I, for example, create a new document on the LibreOffice Writer, and what I'm very sad about that we don't have a fix for those kind of broken icons, you can fix this by going to Tools, then Options, then View, and here the theme I changed to Colibri, and then I hit apply, and then everything looks fine. Then I hit OK. But what I wanted to show you, if I create a document which I want to have as a template, which I have saved somewhere. So I hit save here, I close my writer, and then here in document templates, I hit new, and then we can select the document. I select this here, and then we have it as a template listed. And now if I go into my file manager back again, and if I want to create a new document, then I have also this template document as an option to create a new one here. Very useful for some specific things. To be honest, this functionality isn't completely new. You could already put your specific templates into the so-called templates folder. And here you see also the template manager just copied the file in here. But now we have a more clear option to do that. I guess especially beginners didn't know this useful function of the file manager. And also totally awesome, during file transfers here at the file manager, you can now pause the operation and resume it later. This wasn't possible before. You had to cancel or finish. And also under the hood, we have better thumbnail support and an improved search. So you can find your documents faster, whether by file name or by content. And also the regex expressions have been updated, so your search works even better now. And another feature which feels a bit like 2010, but it's nice to have, is notification badges. For example, if you have Discord open, the icon will show how many notifications you have in the taskbar. The application needs to support this, but many do. We also have now better Thunderbolt support, including a display of what is connected and authorization for docs. So we can now search for Thunderbolt. Here we see a new entry, and then we would see if something is connected here, if we have to authorize something, and some information about the Thunderbolt. But I currently do not have any Thunderbolt connected. Also, under themes, we can still customize everything of Linux Mint. And under advanced settings, themes are now better grouped. So for example, if we have a look to the icons, we see the Mint L legacy, the Mint X and the Mint Y theme here, but also the Papyrus theme family or the Yaru theme family. So if you like the icon theme of Ubuntu, you can just change this to the Yaru theme here. We can change the desktop, for example, to Mint Y Dark Orange, and the application theme to Mint Y Orange, for example. And then this looks definitely a bit like Ubuntu. So if you like the Ubuntu style, this might be your theme. But also we can get back to the simplified settings, and I can reset to the normal style very easily. I select Mint Y here and then appearance mixed, and then we have our normal color scheme here. And also one thing everyone has been waiting for, or maybe not, is in Warpinator. Warpinator is a program where you can send files across your local network to other Warpinator instances of other computers. So very easy file transferring, but now you can also send text messages via Warpinator. It only runs in your local network, peer-to-peer, so it's not a WhatsApp replacement. But I guess, to be honest, great for quickly sending a link between computers if you don't have Signal or Telegram or other communication software installed. But honestly, a very simple chat function in 2026. Very funny, but Linux Mint is doing that. Yeah, those are the biggest changes. I feel this update is quite substantial, as the .3 versions usually are, so great work here from the Linux Mint team. But I must address one thing, and this is Wayland. The Wayland version hasn't improved visually much in this release. A lot happened in the background, but Cinnamon is still primarily on the old X server. I actually expected us to move away from the old technology completely this year, but Linux Mint is taking its time. It's getting better, but for now we are still here. I hope we might have a good working Wayland version this year. I hope the Linux Mint team will now address those features. For example, a lock screen is still missing in the Wayland version. But however, they hit the nerve with the new features in this version. The start menu, the boot settings, the system info are really cool additions. Yeah, I really like most of the new features. This is also the last update in the 22 series. We will get security updates here until 2029, but no new features anymore. So the next big step will be Linux Mint 23, likely coming in the summer, based on then Ubuntu 26.04, which will be released in this April. So this is it for what's new about Linux Mint. Now, how do we update and when? I recommend waiting for 2 or 3 weeks if you want to be safe. If you are eager, you can do it, of course. Now, I didn't heard of lot problems as usually on those small Linux Mint Surface Pack upgrades. How to update? I have booted up an older Linux Mint version here, so you can very directly upgrade from a 22 version of Linux Mint. So if I have a look to my system information here, I have a Linux Mint 22.2 version of Linux Mint, but you can also upgrade from Linux Mint 22 or 22.1. This is very fine. If you have an older Linux Mint version, I put you the corresponding video into the video description how to upgrade from, for example, 21.3 to 22. This is a bigger upgrade. I would say we just open up the update manager, then I hit refresh here. It's updating the cache now. And then I see a new version of the update manager is available. I apply the update, I hit authenticate here, and then you see I have a lot of updates. I recommend doing at first. Afterwards, we can go to edit and then upgrade to Linux Mint 22.Sina. There will be a new menu point. I select this one and then we see the introduction. Nice. Next. We see our release notes. If you want to be safe regarding, for example, VirtualBox or other hardware specific things, this is definitely a look worth, or how you can go around potential problems. For example, with older NVIDIA cards, I won't recommend the upgrade to 22.3. So I guess if you have a GTX 700 or lower, that's not your operating system anymore. And if you want to be safe, you could also do a system snapshot before. So I open up the menu, I open up Timeshift. This is the system restore utility of Linux Mint. I type in my password and here I could create a new snapshot, but only if you have enough disk space available. On very, very big systems, this could be 100 gigabytes of size. So it's basically doubling your Linux Mint system files. But for me, that's fine. I'm not doing this snapshot. But if you want to be safe, can definitely recommend it to you. Then we hit next, and here we can see all the new features I showed you in this video. And then we go to the next button and then we see the risk. Yes, it could be risky upgrading to a new version again, but normally those smaller upgrades are not a big deal for most of the systems. So I hit apply here and then I type in my password and then the update is happening. This takes some time. In my case, I guess the upgrader is firstly doing my updates I didn't do for a long time on this machine here. And afterwards, it's then upgrading to the Linux Mint 20.3 version. So this takes some time, about 10 to 15 minutes, I would say. And afterwards, you can reboot your computer and then you have upgraded to the very latest Linux Mint version, which I can really recommend. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you liked it. Which new feature do you like best? Which one do you find useless? Let me know it into the comments. And if you want to start fresh with Linux, now is a perfect time. I'm putting the crash course for the Linux Mint installation in the end card right now. You have my recommendation. If you want an overview of all distributions, check out the other video on the end card, because there are many more in Linux. And in the end, I wish you lots of fun with Linux Mint 22.3, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care